Batman and Superman, World's Finest. It's been quite some time since this series first started with Batman, which subsequently ended up moving forward into Superman. Recently, if you keep up with the content on my channel, I have gotten into doing group sizes when it comes to unpopular opinions. So I thought, why not slightly follow that trend and do the World's Finest, which also gives the opportunity for people to get unpopular opinions in about Batman and Superman when they didn't get a chance to maybe do so months ago when the series started. Now, the two most popular comments I was seeing on the community post was people either A, don't like seeing these two fight each other anymore, or B, actually don't like seeing them work together. So, with that being said, let's get into some of the comments. Let's start with the comment that was probably the most overwhelming comment I received. From Wiz, them working together is infinitely more entertaining than them fighting again. Here's the thing, I'm not actually saying this in terms of me believing that is an unpopular opinion. I think the unpopular opinion is what I'm going to say. I don't actually mind it at all. I think a lot of people don't like it nowadays because a lot of people would end up saying that when we think of Batman and Superman, that's the only type of story we get, that it's played out, it's boring, we don't need to keep seeing it anymore. And I do understand that from a particular point of view. However, there are an infinite amount of stories in which Batman and Superman do work together, whether that is as the world's finest or if it is them working together in a Justice League setting. I think what it is recently some of the most popular and most talked about stories that DC has given you over the past couple of years, things like Injustice or Batman vs Superman, they're so heavily discussed nowadays that it makes it feel as if Batman and Superman are always fighting. And that's not me saying there aren't other examples outside of those two stories. Of course there are. But I do believe it is one of those things that at the time, there were a lot of people who were really excited of the idea of having Batman and Superman fight each other. You are basically getting polar opposite characters, not just in how they dress, but in their powers and their abilities and their mentalities as well, and you are making them fight. A human versus a god. In these stories that these two characters fight each other, the scope and scale is so wide and vast that it does make it almost feel as if they have fought each other a lot more than they have worked together and have been friends together. It's just because in recent history, it's how much it's been talked about. So whereas I do understand it, I am also okay with it if they don't work together and you give me stories where they do have to fight each other. Doesn't bother me at all. Friendly Bat Doom. They work best at their peak of power when they're like brothers. Batman should be virtually untouchable as a warrior and intellect, think Doctor Doom without magic, with Superman with his god-level powers. They are the paragons of DC Comics. Agreed, but I do also believe that the unpopular opinion in this statement here is making Batman the Doctor Doom of DC Comics, which in a lot of rights, he already is that today and has been that for many years. But for some reason, there are a lot of people who don't want Batman to be that way. It is because over the years we've been so overly saturated with Batman that no matter what story he's going to be part of it, they always shoehorn him in, and they always ensure that he has ways to save the day, to stop an evil threat, or to do whatever he needs to do to finish the job, even over characters much more powerful than him. What I don't really understand is that is just who Batman is at the core of the character now. Why it's not okay for him to be on that level, at the very least, of intelligence. When you're teaming him up with Superman, you can't just make Batman obsolete. He needs to offer things to the table that maybe Superman himself can't do, or to at least give us reasons as to why Batman is on a level of being able to stand side by side with Superman as they fight some of the toughest villains that DC has to offer. Batman, in relation to Doctor Doom, as you put it here, he does need to be on that level of power, on that level of planning and preparation. If they are going to be the world's finest, they need to prove as to why they can be. And especially Batman, he needs to prove why he's the other half of it. Injustice really did give a very unique perspective on their friendship that I actually liked. It's very strange. Injustice used to be one of those things that was very loved and respected from every corner of the fan base. Over the past couple of years, it seems there are a lot of people who really hate the game now, or at the very least, they hate the story that the game represents. But it really comes down to the fact that Superman is evil in that game, which I just will never understand, because in a world like DC that has been set up to have an infinite amount of universes with all types of possibilities, there's bound to be a multitude of worlds where Superman is evil or turns evil. It's just going to happen. And if people want to make stories about that, they should be creatively free to do so. I have to agree that Injustice handled it very well. What makes the dynamic so interesting and honestly pretty heartbreaking, you're taking two people who believe that they found a very close-knit family connection to one another, and now you have two sides that always envisioned if something like this were to happen, I, Batman, would have Superman on my side. I, Superman, would have Batman on my side. Now they find themselves opposing one another, and what that does to a relationship in which you believe you are brothers is really sad. One of the most powerful emotions and one of the saddest things you can do in storytelling is having two characters who once loved or cared for one another to then have them be pitted against each other for the foreseeable future, if not forever. If we all love Batman and Superman being allies and working together, we should have to feel that pain and, in all honesty, feel uncomfortable when they have to fight each other. All right, buckle up, everyone. This is going to be a long one. Caleb Reynolds. Batman has turned into a plot device and is no longer a character. He induces an eye roll every time he joins a storyline these days. But Superman is the GOAT. I think it's become a popular opinion to bash on the Man of Steel. I think the truth is most people are too weak to love Superman, a man who helps everyone in any way he can and wants nothing in return. That's something that seems impossible to the eyes of so many jaded people who have let the world beat them down to the point of questioning any kindness. As for when Batman and Superman team up, I mean, realistically speaking, since they both have photographic memories, there's no reason why Superman couldn't do everything Batman does but better, simply because he perceives time so much faster than Bruce does. Even if Superman had significantly worse detective skills, he has much more time to formulate a hypothesis and test it before Batman's very human brain can even spit out one. I understand why putting these two popular characters together makes sense from a marketing perspective, but from a story perspective, Batman is honestly so far behind Superman that he would be slowing the Kryptonian down. I think at the end of the day, Batman as a street level character can be peak. Batman as a Justice League character is annoying. In Godzilla vs. Justice League, the Bat family is able to take out a Titan that almost killed Kong by using conventional weaponry and sonic pulse. A Titan. That's ridiculous. Frankly, there is a lot to unpack here, but I'll dive into pieces of this comment and give my 2 cents. Batman as a plot device. I understand it from certain points of view, and I also understand it to certain extents. Maybe this is because I am such a big Batman fan, but I do believe it is just a core piece of his character now. If he is going to be a member of the world's finest, let alone the Justice League, he does need to have the ability to have some sort of plot device given to him. Let's be honest here. every single comic book character has plot armor. The plot armor is going to be the story that best suits the victory for your main character. Sometimes that plot armor can be seen very seamlessly where it doesn't feel like it, but then sometimes it can be a little stronger when you take someone like Batman, where you can evidently tell the writer is just doing crazy things with him. As for Superman, we can't pretend here that plot armor does not exist for that character as well. It might not be as evident for him as it is for Batman, but it has been quite heavy over the years. Any impossibility that is laid out for the DC universe, Superman can outrank that. Any multiversal nature that should be out of bounds for Superman, Superman will likely be able to find a workaround. Any law of physics that a group of writers deems to be set in place in a DC universe, Superman will eventually be able to break those laws of physics in his own favor. He's pretty much always done it and will still do it moving forward in the future. I personally think the reason why people don't always like Superman as much is because a lot of the fan base today makes it seem that you can only see the character in a particular black and white situation. He can only ever be A, he can't be B. And I know quite a few people who that's very annoying for. It's very annoying for myself, and the character doesn't always feel like he can grow up and mature from a very specific version that people only want him to be in. I think it's the ability from being able to treat the character as a human being, the ways that we want to see him and the way that he wants to be perceived, but that also means bringing him into human type situations where mistakes and wrongdoings will be made, while at the same time wanting to make Superman be an all perfect type of a character. And that's just not going to happen. But when it comes to both Batman and Superman working together, Superman can already do a ridiculous amount of things. And as you state here, it's true. He could probably do everything Batman does given enough time to learn how to do it. But what would be the point in giving Superman that type of power, whereas he could just realistically be able to make every other character in DC obsolete? There should just be certain things that Superman can't do or just isn't good at, no matter how hard he tries. At the end of the day, Batman brings popularity. Whether he is acting as a street tier character or he is the human god amongst gods in the Justice League or teaming up beside his best friend in Superman, he's bringing the attention. He's bringing the excitement. Lightyear Pig. Superman turning evil and Batman staying good and fighting him is old news. Superman fighting an evil Batman would be way more awesome, since Batman would make a way more terrifying villain than Superman. Couldn't agree more. It has been done before, maybe not as much, but if Batman did turn evil, Superman has even admitted he would be the most dangerous man on planet Earth. There would now be nothing stopping him. There would be nothing holding him back. He would kill all villains and heroes, anyone who would even remotely stand in his way. And no matter how powerful or in ways unstoppable Superman might be, Batman has all the answers on how to stop someone like Superman. In fact, one of the worst first people to go up against an evil Batman would be Superman, because if you allowed Superman to be defeated and killed right at the beginning, what chance does anyone else in that world have? What is very scary about an evil Batman is whereas an evil Superman in certain instances could perhaps be talked to, maybe reasoned with, given the certain circumstance, I don't think Batman could. If he went evil, he is evil. It is over. It no longer matters what he once was. Batman, for someone who's mastered a lot of things, could just shut off his emotions, prior attachments he has had to people once before, and Superman wouldn't make an exception. Devil XL. Their core ideologies are so fundamentally opposed that their team-ups often feel forced. Superman is an idealist who believes in the inherent good of people, while Batman is a pragmatist who operates from a place of distrust. Their dynamic is usually boiled down to the light and the dark, but the contrast often results in repetitive conflicts rather than meaningful collaboration. When they do work together, it's usually because one of them has to compromise who they are. The best Batman-Superman stories are the ones that acknowledge their differences while giving them individual space to shine. Otherwise, their team-ups tend to feel like an obligatory clash of philosophies rather than a true partnership. I definitely see where you're coming from. The term opposites attract can absolutely be true and has been proven to be true countless times. Is that evidently true between Batman and Superman? Would these two characters truly be able to blend their methods together? Batman, more or less, is an all-stealth type of character who primarily works at night. Superman, simplistically, he's an all-bright, shining ray of hope and optimism who primarily works during the day. Often, one of them has to compromise who they truly are and how they do prefer to operate. Once again, it's comic books at the end of the day. Fictional characters, whatever story you want to write can be done. I myself love The World's Finest. I love the idea of Batman and Superman being a team up, but I do absolutely understand where you're coming from, and you did make some great points. Duke Sly Talker. Batman and Superman are a better duo than Batman and Robin. It's more interesting having a middle-class bright alien with a rich dark vigilante than just a vigilante and his kid. That's definitely an unpopular opinion, and I'm not saying that I disagree with you, but I do think some people would say you might be selling the dynamic of Batman and Robin a little short, but I get it. The two pillars of the DC universe teaming up together, it has a lot more pull and power and attraction to it than Batman and his boy sidekick. Obviously, what's supposed to make Batman and Robin interesting is the dynamic they share in terms of their relationship and their connection. Especially when you look at each Robin, they all have different reasons as to why Bruce and Dick and Jason and Tim and whoever else come together. Their relationships are often tested, and it is also to go to show how good or bad of a father Bruce Wayne can really be. But when you take Batman and Superman together, for all the pros and cons and rights and wrongs and goods and bads that Batman and Superman do have when they work together, at the end of the day, the entertainment ability those two characters bring together and just the ideas of what these two characters can do together, it's so great and grand and captivating. It's very hard to beat. All these other IPs out there, I don't really know who is creating a world's finest that is going to be sought after at the level and scale of Batman and Superman. If they fight, they bring in conversation, discussion, and interest. When they work together and are friends and brothers, they bring in conversation, discussion, and interest. Now for my unpopular opinion on the world's finest, and it actually has to deal with their villains. Often when we discuss Batman's villains being paired up against Superman and vice versa, we do believe that Batman would more or less have a harder time with Superman's villains, and because of how powerful Superman is, he would have a much easier time against Batman's villains. Whether or not that's true is not the point of my unpopular opinion. Batman and Superman have created such a close connection to each other and have fought each other's villains together so often. I personally believe there should come a point some of Superman's villains can become Batman villains and some of Batman's villains can become Superman villains. And that's not saying that these villains are just switching sides. They're just becoming more compatible with both heroes. I think we should start seeing Poison Ivy go after Superman just as much as she causes trouble for Batman. We should see Lex Luthor go after Batman for his billions just as much as we see him hate Superman. Toyman would be someone who would be great to go up against Batman often, considering this now tests Batman's gadgetary output. And even though he might not be on the strength level of Superman, why not bring in Scarecrow, somebody who can test all forms of his senses, including, most importantly, his fears? Is Superman mentally capable of handling a character like that? If characters like Batman and Superman can have a wide variety of villains, why can't those villains have a wide variety of heroes, or in their mindset, villains to themselves that they can go up against? But there it is, everyone. Unpopular opinions on Batman and Superman, the world's finest. At the end of the day, when you have two characters like Batman and Superman who are the most popular comic characters of all time, you're going to get a lot of unpopular opinions on these characters, whether or not they are from people who really like these characters or perhaps don't really care for them. So as per usual, leave in the comments below other unpopular opinions on Batman and Superman if you didn't get the chance to do so in the community post, and let me know who you would like to see next on Unpopular Opinions. That is all I have for you on this one, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.